Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, U.S. Brand Ambassador for OnCrawl. Today I'm talking about combining websites into one website. Essentially, there are several steps you can take to combine and move the content from one website or multiple websites actually into one website. But basically it's a domain migration, but essentially you're moving content from multiple websites into one particular website. This can actually be pretty difficult when deciding, especially which content to move, which content to redirect, which content to completely just remove from the website. I'm not going to get into those particular steps right now, but I am going to go through the process of using OnCrawl and using your basically content and looking at all of the pages and combining those actually into one website. There's a lot of reasons why you'd have to do this. Could be company acquisition. It could be that you have several websites and you've actually needed to essentially consolidate them into one. But let's get started. So typically the first thing we'll want to do is actually crawl all of these websites. We basically want to include the Google Analytics data, the Google Search Console data from Majestic.com, because of the fact that we want to preserve the links and we want to know which pages have links. And we also want the log file data, if at all possible, because we want to know all of the URLs. And we want to make a massive list of all of the pages that possibly could be moved, or basically all of the pages that exist on all of the domain names. This could be, we're talking about multiple domain names and websites, but there actually could be, it could be just three, where you're taking two websites and combining them into one. But actually I've seen cases and I've worked on cases where, examples have literally 10, 20, 30 different websites and combining them essentially all into one website. But let's make that list. Let's crawl all the sites and basically make a list or multiple lists of the URLs and of all of the sites, because you'll definitely need those later for the redirects. Essentially what I like to do is create a spreadsheet with all the URLs and all the sites. And then, this could involve multiple tabs, one for each site, one for the new website you're creating. So basically what we want to do is start that tedious process of listing all the pages on the new website that we're going to have. And then actually start to map out which pages from the old websites we're moving over to the new websites. So once we had that spreadsheet, we're actually going to want to see and start to look at which needs to be redirected, what content needs to be moved, what content needs to be, and which pages need to be combined. And so we're going to start making a plan for combining the content and planning for moving the content. Of course, it's going to have probably navigational changes, basically changes to internal links on the site. So we'll need to map those out in the spreadsheet as well. But keep in mind that that if at all possible, just keep as many URLs as the same as possible. On that main website, even if it's it's a little easier if it's a new URL, a new domain rather. But again, if you're combining multiple websites into one, it's helpful actually to keep the same URLs on the main site as you can. It just makes it easier if some of the URLs at least don't change. So don't change, for example, if you have a contact page and you've always been using something, domain.com/contact, and there's no reason for it to change to domain.com/contact-us, for example, just use that same URL there. So basically, when they're in this whole process, I actually do recommend starting with a brand new, a new server, new site for that domain. basically so that you can actually take that content and while you're working on it and move the content over, update the site, and get it ready for the migration. That'll give you actually enough time to move it and so forth, and to combine content. It kind of gets messy when you actually are having a work in progress and you're working on it, updating navigation and pieces and parts of it, and from one sites, and you're actually beginning to move content and you already have a live site. It can get kind of messy there. Well, basically, once you're happy with the site, and the content that's some of it's moved, some of it's combined, you can actually start to set up the redirects. So what you'll want to do is obviously you have a spreadsheet and a list of all that on the OnCrawl crawl data as well. You have that list of all the pages from the other sites, and you've hopefully at this point decided which pages need to be redirected. So basically, we want to do also is for all the versions, http://https:// http://www, and of course the https://www. All those versions and subdomains, you want to make sure those are all verified in Google Search Console. Set up the redirects. You're probably going to use the htaccess file to set up the redirects, and then allow basically the search engines to crawl the new site. If you've changed a new server, you'll need to update the domain's name servers, basically to have them point to the new server. And then actually what you want to do is use that Google Change of Address tool. Basically, you're telling Google that you've officially moved from one domain to the other, and that has to actually happen on the home page. So what you'll need to do is if you go to one of the old pages, the home page of one of the old sites, that home page, it will need to be redirected over to the new site. That has to happen for that change of address tool to work. It's important because if you're actually telling Google that you've moved from one domain to another, or multiple domains to the other, that's important actually, because that'll help preserve some of that credit, if you will, and you're officially telling Google that, okay, we know that we're moving and this is what we've moved to. Go ahead and update your Google Analytics settings. Make sure that you want to point to the new domain name. You may not be able to actually keep all the historical Google Analytics data, because if you have multiple domain names or multiple sites, you'll have different UA codes on those other sites. So that'll be important to make sure that you've moved to a new one, or use one of them. You may want to keep the other Google Analytics accounts still active, and not delete them, so you can refer back to that data. But basically, it's not like you're moving from one domain to the other. You have probably multiple Google Analytics accounts, and you're moving those to one domain name. So you may just want to start off with a brand new one. Same thing as some of the other projects, like when you're redirecting and you've done all that, crawl the sites again. Basically, set up a new crawl with OnCrawl, use that list mode, the URL list mode, and basically upload that list of all the URLs, and make sure that you've redirected them, and they're all set up as 3-in-1 redirects. You may actually want to go through and manually just spot check some of them as well, just by copying and pasting some and randomly and checking those. But primarily, if you use that URL files list and you upload that to OnCrawl, you let it run, and you'll be able to check and find that. So basically, once you've moved that content over, any new content that you've moved or updated, you may want to use the Google Fetch and Render tool to basically request that Google recrawl the site. I also recommend actually that make sure your sitemap.xml file or files, your XML sitemap files are correct and so forth. You might want to check those as well. So basically, that is an overview of moving and combining websites into one website. This can be sometimes a very large project that can take weeks and weeks. But again, it is something to go through and make sure everything is done correctly, because there is the chance that you can you could lose rankings and traffic if it's not done properly. And I can say that OnCrawl is definitely one of my favorite tools for doing these domain migrations, and it's very helpful for me. Again, this is Bill Hartzer, U.S. Brand Ambassador for OnCrawl, and I hope you've gotten some good information here. Thanks.